Welcome back to the Convo Couch, live at the KDEM convention, and I'm with one of my favorite journalists. I see him on the Real News Network all the time, Norman Solomon. I watched your piece on Joe Biden is the credit card candidate. Can you give us a little bit about Joe Biden and your opinions on him and why you're here today? Because I got this in my hand. And tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah, well, it says a lot that Joe Biden isn't here.
Yes.
I mean, it sounded like the dog that didn't bark. It's the Joe Biden who didn't show up. Now, I've heard he's in Iowa. He might be on Wall Street picking up some more big checks. But it's very illustrative that here we have the biggest convention of Democrats in the country before the national convention that's going to nominate summer next year, and he's not here. The reason is that these folks scare him. These activists, these grassroots delegates, he wants to have nothing to do with them because he knows he can't anticipate exactly what might happen. And he's totally into his script. So here's Joe Biden, who made his bones in the Senate opposing busing for racial desegregation in the 1970s. He got more prominence as the lead sponsor and spokesperson for the now infamous crime bill of 1994. He's been enmeshed with the credit card companies and the banks and the big shyster loan institutions for several decades. And now he claims he's again the friend of the working man and woman. So this is the Joe Biden we got, and it's important that he not remain the front runner in the polls, because if we're stuck with him as the nominee, it's going to be double trouble.
So that's some great stuff, and I mean, I really do love your work, but the last time I saw one of your shows, we went through all these things. We went through what happened in the 60s and the 70s with Joe Biden, which I didn't know, a lot of people didn't know. That video surfaced of him talking about the fence 700 miles long, way before Trump even said anything. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's a great one. He was bragging about the crime bill. He was obviously, kind of bragging to some minions for some money. We haven't even got to Ukraine. Do you have any information when it comes to Joe Biden in Ukraine?
Well, that's still unfolding, and I really have not addressed that. I think that systemically, he's a huge friend of the military-industrial complex. And in fact, he oversaw, as chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, a sham hearing in the summer of 2002, which excluded any dissenting voices saying, hold on, this invasion could be a disaster. He supported the invasion of Iraq that happened in March of 2003. He's been a big booster of what Martin Luther King Jr. called the madness of militarism. So this is what we're dealing with. And, that is militarism around the world, but it's also a kind of militarism at home in terms of mass incarceration, in terms of the violence visited on vulnerable people, especially people of color in this country, by the police. And on this flyer that you mentioned, he says that he is the most proud. He says he's the most proud. He says, my greatest accomplishment is the 1994 crime bill. He said that to a convention of the National Sheriff's Association. So now he's trying to downplay it because the wind has shifted. But that's a big difference between Biden and, say, somebody like Bernie Sanders, who I support. For Biden, he puts his finger to the wind, his rhetoric changes, but his policy is always with the militarism, the big banks, and Wall Street.
Thank you so much for your time, Norman Solomon. You're awesome. I'm going to keep supporting you. Where can we find some more Norman Solomon?
Well, I'm at normansolomon.com, but most of all, I'm part of RootsAction.org. We have 1.2 million people active online, and anybody's invited to sign up at RootsAction.org. Let's make the movement grow.
It got really loud in here. I'm so sorry, but hey, thank you for taking the time out, Norman. We're going to make sure that we crush Joe Biden in early. The gloves are off. Norman Solomon can give you a lot of information, real news, roots activists. You heard him. Convo Couch out. Thank you again, Norman Solomon.